Hello there, everybody. Yes, you didn't hear the melodious tones of Casey Leiden chanting mixed martial arts over and over again, but we are here.
Mixed
UFC
martial
is back
arts
in the Sunshine State. They returned to O-Town. I guess in the early 1900s, the city was called the City Beautiful, and apparently that name has continued on. UFC Orlando going down tomorrow night, featuring one of the friendliest freaking main events, at least in terms of build, that we have seen in quite some time. So we welcome you to the UFC Orlando preview show on MMAfighting.com. I am Mike Heck. That is Alexander K. Lee. Hello, AK.
Hey guys, I'm excited. I'm excited to talk about this card that I won't be watching live.
Speaking of people not watching it live,
what
that
are you
is
doing?
Mr. No Gray Area, Jed Bashu.
Hi, friends.
How are you, Jed?
You know, excited to talk about it's getting better. We're only at 14 fights, so this card is actively improving.
Yes. AK, what are you doing that is making you not watch fights live?
Just family friend thing, family social time. Just
You have friends?
I have people acquaintances.
I thought you had us.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are my real friends. These are people I just like. It's all politics. It's all politics. You know, I got to go show up. I got to kiss some babies. You know how it is, guys. You know how it is. You get to keep the gears moving in your life.
Hey, that's how it goes. Kiss some babies, shake some hands. It's reasonable.
Yeah. I mean, listen, we have lives outside of MMA, and that's okay. But this is the last fight night card of 2022 in front of a big crowd. There will be one more.
Is that true? Oh,
in front of a big crowd.
In front of a crowd. Got it. Okay.
They're back at the greatest Apex in the world on December 17th. That'll
The
be the final card of the year.
Apex. Some have
called Apex. But this is the go-home show for UFC 282. We now have 14 fights. If you guys didn't know, Amanda Hebas versus Tracy Cortez no longer taking place in the card. Medical issues for Tracy Cortez per the UFC. So that fight no longer happening. As Jed said, down to 14 fights. We have ranked guys and gals on the card. We have wily veterans. We have intriguing prospects. A main event with at least some stakes with guys we all know. AK, we'll begin with you. You know where I'm going with this. Gymnastics score for UFC Orlando. The people all want to know.
This could be a 9. I mean, this could be a 9, 9.1, 9 point. We're talking pay-per-view level if this pays off. Now, I do think on paper, and this is something that sort of like I thought about when I was looking at I was like, oh, they're going to try and cram like 8. Well, they were originally going to be 9, excuse me. It was going to be 9 fights into the 7 p.m. Eastern time to 10 p.m. Eastern time window. And I'm like, that's a little crazy, especially since there's a lot of decision potential. Not that decisions like are inherently bad. Like, you know, Clay Guida and Scott Holtzman could go to a decision, but it could be a fun decision. Darren Elkins, Jonathan Pierce could go to a decision. It could be a fun one. But you know, generally, I know if we're talking about like the rating of a card, we like to have some finishes thrown in there. And I'm just looking up and down. I think there's going to be quite a few decisions. I would say more decisions than finishes, but I just still like the potential of it. I like that there are the name value of it. I like that there are rankings implications. Of course, we're talking with the MMA Fighting global rankings. We've got like 7 or 8 people in there, 3 or 4 top 10 fighters, I think. And some of those are on the prelims. So that's exciting. I like the way the card is built, Mike. I was telling Jose earlier today that I like how you've got sort of the lesser known or debuting fighters in their first few fights. Then you've got a run of lifers. You got Darren Elkins, Michael Johnson, Clay Guida, Angela Hill, which I think they have a combined like 120 something UFC fights between the 4 of them. It's insane. Then a great banger with Nico Price, Phil Rowe. And the main card really strong too. A little confused why Ty and Sergey Pavlovich isn't the co-main, though. You know, big respect to RDA, big respect to Barbarina there. So strong main card, really well organized prelim. Let's go. Let's say 9.2. 9.2 if everything goes right. We get a good mixture of exciting fights and finishes.
Are you around there, Jed? I mean, there is a lot to like here, especially for a fight night card. I mean, this one compared to the most recent fight night card we had, holy moly, this is night and day, is it not?
Yeah, New York Rick's an asshole is how I'll start this off by saying He's right, and it ruined it for me because yesterday on BTL, I was very high. I was like, yeah, it's a good card. I'm excited. We've got some fun things happening, yada, yada. My only downside to the card is that it's 15 fights long, and it starts at the late hours of the evening. So you're going to be watching fist fights for 127 hours on Saturday. And then Rick got on and was like, this is a fine card. It's not good. It's not bad. It's fine. This is what we used to get all the time. And now because our Apex cards are just awful, we are glowing about this. And I thought about it, and he's right. And it's ruined it for me because this is a fine card. Like there's nothing wrong with this card. This is one of the better offerings we've gotten in months, frankly, from a fight night card. But this isn't this is not appointment viewing. This is not the normal fight card where I'm like, hey, you don't watch. Just go to MMAfighting.com. Great website. We'll cover you. You can get the highlights. You can check out the big fights later at your leisure. You don't have to spend all day in front of the TV. Totally cool. I would even suggest if you got nothing else to do, watch this fight card. A lot of quality fights. You're getting tied to Ivasa on ESPN, baby. That is high quality entertainment value for money. But there's still 14 fights, which is an awful lot of them. And as much as it is largely a well-constructed card, it's just like, I don't know. Do I need to see this many octogenarians fist fight on Saturday? Because there are a bunch of old mother effers on this card, man. Stephen Thompson is Wonder Man 40. RDA is not 40, but he's like 38 going on 107. I mean, Eric Anders has lived many lives and hasn't looked young in the UFC in some time. And then you get the stretch of Angela Hill, Clay Guida, and Scott Holtzman are old. Michael Johnson's old. Darren Elkins is super old. Like it's fine. It's a quality card. This is an 880. You know, if we're doing the 9.2 is AK, give me an 8 point something, somewhere in the middle ranges of 8. Because there are enough touch points to be good. I'm stoked. You're going to give me Tai Tuivasa fighting a dude who's just going to chuck him with them? Hell yeah, baby. Sign me up. But it's less good than I think we all want it to be, but it is just so much better than what we've been gotten that we are feeling. This feels like filet mignon when really this is like skirt steak, but we've been eating dog food for the year. So it's like, hell yeah, this skirt steak rules.
A couple of things there. I noticed you said 127 hours of fights, and I wonder if did you pick that number because, like, by the time you're in the middle of Matheus Nicolau outpointing like Matt Schnell, you're going to be wanting to chop your own arm off. Was that an intentional 127 hours reference?
Maybe subconsciously because it's
that was amazing.
It's less that it's more just like there is a very if things go well, hindsight always is this way. Like if this is an awesome card, cool. A lot of people say that you never know until they fight them. That crowd's been pretty quiet the last few fight nights. I'll just throw out there. Hadn't been a lot of dudes coming into the DMs and be like, told you shouldn't shit on this card. It was awesome. There is a very real world where all of these old people look really old. And this fight card is maybe not as like decision heavy boring as it is just like sad to be like, ooh, another old guy just looking old in there and just I'm glad we just watched Darren Elkins look real old. Now we get to see Michael Johnson. He probably looks like a spry young pup. Like there is a world where this is, and then after that's Clay Guida. There is a middle stretch here where that can go bad in like a very bad way is all I'm saying.
I was saying before the combined fights of the four names I just meant the older fighters, we'll say Elkins, Johnson, Guida, Angela Hill, 110 UFC fights, and that's not
back to back.
And that's all back to back, and it's not even so. That's not counting RDA. If you throw in RDA, that's 142 fights going into 142 combined UFC fights going into Saturday's card between just those five names. I think that is to be admired and excited about. But to your point, Jed, I will say you said it was New York Rick that kind of
Ricky is the one
brought this down,
who said it, and then I was like, oh, yeah, that's right.
You guys both have a good sense of history, and this morning Jose and I were talking about what were the previous Orlando cards like. So this is pretty comparable, I think, to the last time they went there. This was 4 years ago. February 2018. Jeremy Stevens, Josh Emmett headliner. Jessica Andrade is on there. Ilir Latifi, Max Griffin versus Mike Perry. So like, I think Orlando's a bit above this Orlando card is a bit above the 2018 one, but the 2015 one, this is a UFC on Fox event, was insanely loaded. Headlined by a title fight back when they did that sort of thing for fight nights. Or I guess it was technically not a fight night, a UFC on Fox card. And they were I remember they put a lot of big fights on Fox. RDA, speak of the devil, defended his title against Donald Cerrone, his only successful title defense. Alistair Overeem versus JDS in the co-main. You might remember Nate Diaz beating Michael Johnson, cutting a little promo after. That was that a little footnote from the card. And then some of the other names. Charles Oliveira was in the prelim headliner fighting Miles Jury. Valentina Shevchenko made her UFC debut against Sarah Kaufman on short notice. This is the prelims, by the way. Fox Sports. This is on Fox Sports 1. And then on the UFC Fight Pass prelims, Francis Ngannou opened the card. His UFC debut, I believe, as well, against Luis Henrique. Second round knockout. And then the UFC Fight Pass prelim headliner, a little match of welterweights. Kamaru Usman versus Leon Edwards. This is a free card once upon a time. This is 3 Orlando cards ago. Or 2 Orlando cards ago, excuse me. Wow.
The times have changed.
The times have changed. So when you put it that way, I could see how you're saying maybe we're, relatively speaking, we're looking at this card in a high light. But boy, compared to that card, if we knew what some of those people would become, unbelievable card.
I'm trying to find it. I can't remember who, and I don't remember exactly the stat. Somebody posted on Twitter earlier this week that and this is entirely off the cuff, and I may be misremembering the exact number, so don't hold me to it while I look for this, that this card features 4 people in the top 10 of most head strikes absorbed inside the UFC. And that is probably not a stat that's good. I'm just throwing, I'm going to continue looking to see who said it, if it was Paul Gift or Eric or something like that. But assuming that is true, and I didn't just totally dream this into reality, that might not be the best thing, is all I'm saying.
Well, let's talk about this main event tomorrow. AK, we'll start with you. Stephen Thompson versus Kevin Holland. And Wonder Boy, in a lot of people's eyes, around 2 years ago, was maybe 1 win away from a title shot because Kamaru Usman was sort of running out of possible names to fight. But obviously tough 2021 for him. 0-2, 2 decision losses, 1 to Gilbert Burns, 1 to Bilal Muhammad. 2 of the best in this division. And now he's facing Kevin Holland, who moved back to 170, did so for the first time in the UFC, won his first 2 fights, was supposed to fight Daniel Rodriguez in September at UFC 279, ends up fighting Khamzat Chimaev on a little over a day's notice, and try as he did to escape the clutches of one Khamzat Chimaev. He gets submitted in the first round, retired for a cup of coffee, and ended his retirement after said cup of coffee after getting this opportunity with Wonder Boy. So we're a little over 24 hours away, AK. Thoughts on this main event?
I love it. I Kevin Holland's whole, faux retirement was a bit silly. But if he actually was, waiting for the right matchup to bring him back, this was a good one. I mean, this Wonder Boy is a guy who a lot of welterweights have sort of been, I think, welterweights outside of the top 10 have been trying to get their hands on. He has so much name value. Let's be honest, he's getting a bit up there in age. He's 39 now. He turns 40 in February. So if you're an up-and-comer at 170, you see him as a bit ripe for the picking. That hasn't worked out for everyone. It didn't work out for Jeff Neal. It didn't work out for Vicente Luque. When we get to the breakdown, we'll kind of see why it might not work out for Kevin Holland. But Gilbert Burns, Bilal Muhammad, they solved the Wonder Boy puzzle, so it's doable. There's a very specific way you have to fight him to do it, but and a skill set you have to do it. But I like the thought here. I like it both, also, and I like it for Stephen Thompson as well, because Kevin Holland is a name. He was a name at middleweight, a top 10 guy at middleweight. Looks like he's poised to be a top 10 guy at welterweight. Again, that whole Khamzat thing, I think we just kind of write it off. He wasn't supposed to be fighting him in the first place. And credit for him for even taking it. So I like it for Stephen Thompson to kind of, as one of those gauges, to see how much he has left, because that is one of the themes of this card. Is we're going to kind of be looking, I think, at a lot of these fighters and wondering how much we have left. I hate to keep harping on like the age and experience thing, but that is kind of, and we're talking about a Florida card here. If you want to make a Florida retirement gag, by all means, have at it. I'm above that sort of thing. I wouldn't do it. But I'm just saying that this is certainly a notable litmus test for Stephen Thompson for us to know of how much he has left, because he told our own Damon Martin on Fighter vs. Fighter this week that he's not looking for like legacy fights and things like that. He still wants to be in the title mix, and if he beats Holland, it keeps those flames flickering just enough.
Jed, we talked about this fight a little bit on BTL, but when you break this one down, a lot of people feel like if Kevin Holland becomes D1 Trailblazer, he could win this fight rather easily. And I'm not completely sure I agree with that, because I know Wonder Boy had a tough time staying upright against Burns and Muhammad, but he's not fighting Burns or Muhammad here because Holland's not a gigantic wrestling threat. It's there to some extent, but despite what happened the last two fights, I looked this up earlier, he still has a 67% takedown defense throughout his career. And that is on top of being taken down 10 times in his last two fights. Outside of those two fights, Matt Brown got him 5 times. That was his second UFC fight. Woodley got him down once in each of their title fights. Besides that, fighters 0 for 16 in takedown attempts against Wonder Boy. And that includes guys like Rory McDonald and Johnny Hendricks. And you could throw some others in there as well. I feel like his takedown defense at this point, kind of not getting the respect it deserves. Plus, I don't think Kevin's going to shoot for a lot of takedowns. I just don't. When a guy like Kevin Holland says, dude, I'm not going to shoot any takedowns, I believe him for the most part. He's pretty unpredictable because he's Kevin freaking Holland. It's really hard to break down his fights. But is that how you view it as well? Like if Kevin Holland decides to shoot a bunch of takedowns, that he's just going to win a 50-45 decision here?
Probably not. I think that would be bad for him, frankly. You dance with the girl who brought you. I talk about it a lot. It is incredibly rare for fighters to be able to fight against type and have success. I can think of maybe a handful of times that has ever like worked, and you have to really be elite or it has to have been like a focused and committed thing. And that's just not, because it's impossible. Talked about it with Thiago Santos, his most recent fight against Jamal Hill. Like, he was winning that fight and he was losing that war the whole time because he's not a wrestler. It's not what he does. And so he can maybe learn to feign it or be good enough at it, but he is not conditioned for that. He is not prepared to fight that kind of fight over 25 minutes and against real legitimate resistance. And so he is winning moments and sacrificing everything else about his game. And it's eventually the bill comes due. And like you can succeed that way in a short term, but in a 5-round fight, frankly, I don't even know if Kevin Holland's good enough wrestler to take Stephen Thompson down. Stephen Thompson is a perfectly fine defensive wrestler. Yes, Bilal Muhammad took him down at will. I don't know if you guys know this. Bilal's pretty damn good. That's just it. Like, that's the truth of the matter. Bilal is quite good, and he's quite good at that aspect of MMA. If Kevin Holland wants to mix those in, I think that's a good idea. Doing some of everything is always a good idea. And if he just finds that Stephen Thompson falls over with the lightest touch or gust of wind, then sure. Like, Stephen Thompson provides zero threat off his back. So if you can just knee tap him 5 times, go for it. I think that he's not going to have that level of success with that. And frankly, his best path to victory still probably is just punching Stephen Thompson really hard in the face. Because Kevin Holland punches people pretty hard in the face. Stephen Thompson is 57 years old, and that's just it. And he hasn't looked like he takes shots as well as he once did because he's been fighting for a long time. And this is just, his style is not going to age well. I still think because he showed like his losses to Gilbert Burns and Bilal Muhammad aren't as bad as you remember them. If you go rewatch them, they're not good, but they're not good specifically in the wrestling. The rest of it's fine. Like, he's still there. His style is uniquely poorly suited to aging because it relies a lot on timing, speed, and quick twitch muscles. And those are the things that go away as you get older. And that's where he's going to struggle. We haven't seen a ton of it yet. He has maybe lost a little bit, but there's a there's a big room to fall. I don't know if this is going to be the fight that does it or not, but it is as likely to me that Kevin just punches him in the face because Wonder Boy gets out over his skis a little bit. He misjudges the distance a little bit. Kevin's just a little too fast for Steven's karate bouncing things to work, and he can just catch him, and then that's the end of the fight. Than it is for Kevin to become George St. Pierre and just hold Stephen Thompson down for 25 minutes.
AK, what's the big intangible, the big question for either guy in this one?
Man, I don't know if it's an intangible because Jed and I keep bringing it up. It's just the age factor. It's just like, and Jed just said, like, Wonder Boy didn't look that bad in those. I mean, those were clear losses, to the Muhammad and Burns, and the wrestling just, completely outclassed. Well, once it got down to the wrestling, he just has no chance there. But in the striking, it's, we know what he does. We know what Stephen Thompson looks like in there. We know what he's supposed to look like, how he's supposed to fight. And he's looked, prior to the Muhammad and Burns fights, looks good, like those wins against Neil and Luque. But those were 2 years ago now. He's 2 years older, probably 2 years a little bit slower. I mean, age just matters so much in this game. And listen, people who've been watching the preview shows or reading my predictions lately can probably tell, like, I've been counting out a lot of older fighters. Frankie Edgar, of course, I said, like, the same thing. Like, I'm sure Frankie will look fine until he gets caught. And I'm not, by the way, this wasn't some like original insight. That's pretty much how everyone felt about, I think, Frankie Edgar going to that Gutierrez fight. He's either going to win a decision or he's going to be winning a decision until he gets knocked out. The latter happened, and it was pretty rough. Marlon Moraes, another guy, the rematch with Shaman. I think a lot of people, we had it in our Slack chat, guys. We were watching the fight, and we're saying, man, it's Marlon's doing really well. He's up 2 rounds, but this third round, sure enough, third round knockout. It doesn't always go that way, Rafael Assunção, I think, proved a lot of us wrong. Brilliant performance against Victor Henry. So some people can still hang on, and there's fighters in this card who, again, we'll talk about later, who I think they may be older. I'm still picking them to win. But I wonder if Thompson is just about to hit that wall. It's going to happen. I don't know if Kelvin Holland is that dude, is the one to kind of make us all realize, like, oh wow, like Stephen Thompson really is 39 going on 40. A couple of months away from being 40. Like, that's a real thing. I am picking. Well, I guess we'll get to our picks, Mike. But I will say, like, the age thing is, I can't even call it intangible. It's very, very, very tangible. And I don't know if I'll put up a poll. We have 63% picking Holland right now, and I don't know if that's the main reason, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's why a lot of people were leaning in that direction.
Well, the betting odds as we look at them: Kevin Holland -175, Stephen Thompson, the underdog, at +150. So, AK, who you got?
Yeah, I got to go with Holland. I just think he's either going to catch Wonder Boy with something, or at least, if not to finish him, but damage him. Somewhere in the later rounds. I think we will see, like, Wonder Boy wins the first round. Holland has a lot of trouble figuring him out. I don't know if we mentioned, this is, of course, Orlando, not the Apex. And as Jose confirmed, it's the classic, octagon. So this is the big octagon. Wonder Boy going to have a lot of studio space to work with, so to speak. And that makes me even, like, less sure about picking Holland. But I'm erring towards sadness here. I hate to, I'm the prince of positivity, but I just feel like we might get a little bit of a sad result where Wonder Boy looks like Wonder Boy, and we're all kind of like, oh, maybe he can still, like, there are still big fights ahead of him. And again, win or lose, there probably still are. But this will, a loss will change kind of this sort of opponents that we want to see him fight. So I think Holland does catch him. I don't think he can win a decision, especially since it will primarily be on the feet. I think he's going to catch him on the feet. So it'll be more like the way sort of like Anthony Pettis beat him than, say, like a Darren Till or something like that. And that was a terrible fight. I'm not even sure Darren Till won, but it's KO out of nowhere. I'll go round 3 for Holland.
Jed, I would guess you see betting value on Wonder Boy here, because in these types of fights against pretty good strikers without a ton of wrestling, he's done very well. But I know, and you talked about it and alluded to it many times throughout here, the one number that probably concerns you the most is like 39.85, which is like the current age of Wonder Boy Thompson right now, because he's turning 40 in February. But this is welterweight. It's not bantamweight.
Good math.
Yeah,
Good math.
I mean, we're right around there. I might be a little off by a couple of percentage
I think
points,
we're at 0.9 by now, I would assume, but good math.
Yeah. Who wins this one?
I'm going to take Kevin Holland. I don't The more I've thought about this fight, the more I think like Stephen Thompson maybe could be a live dog. I just feel so uncomfortable with that given everything. I do think that Thompson by decision at plus 400 is pretty good value bet just because he hasn't finished a lot of people lately, and Kevin Holland's a pretty durable dude. So it seemed if you're going to bet Stephen Thompson, just go ahead and bet him by decision. I'd be pretty surprised if he won by any other result. I can't, AK said that, maybe age is the big factor for like why the poll says 60. It's 100% the factor. Like it's I'd feel so confident picking Stephen Thompson if we got to teleport in Stephen Thompson from 5 years ago, like 6 years ago in here, because it would just be a brutally bad style matchup for Kevin Holland. Because Stephen Thompson doesn't really lose these kinds of fights. But now this is 25 minutes and one guy is a better finisher. And I historically favor those people in 25-minute fights, and I'm going to stick with it here. I think Kevin Holland just finds a shot at some point. Did AK say third round? Because that's kind of what I'm feeling too.
Yeah, he said second or third round.
Yeah, I'm feeling 3 or 4. I think the first 8 minutes at least are going to look pretty good for Stephen Thompson. And then I think Kevin Holland will find a way to land a big shot. So I'll go third, but third or fourth.
This is an interesting fight because both guys are very durable. Both guys have plenty of main event experience. This one screams decision to me, but the more I've thought about it, the more I think Kevin could catch him. It could be one of those situations, kind of like the Anthony Pettis fight where Steven looks fantastic. Yeah, Steven looks really good and then just gets drilled and the fight's over.
Dude, that fight was ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, I've just been back and forth on it. And when I'm back and forth, then I typically go hey, someone handed me $20 that I can only bet on odds. So I'm going to go with the perceived value here and lean Wonderboy via decision for that exact reason that Jed presented. But I'm not confident in the pick. It's very difficult to predict any fight Kevin Holland is in, honestly. But I think Wonderboy, listen, I'm not comparing him to Alexander Volkanovski. Volkanovski's in-fight adjustments are about as good as I've ever seen. Wonderboy's are pretty damn good too. The longer the fight goes, he adjusts as the fight goes. So if he can make it into the third round, if he can not get caught early, if he can find his way into the championship rounds, he's not just getting killed over 3 rounds. I think Thompson by decision is a pretty live bet. So give me that. I don't have a ton of confidence in either guy, honestly, because I just don't know what the hell we're going to get tomorrow, especially with Kevin Holland involved. So give me Wonderboy by decision, but it's a coin flip for me. That's a flip of the coin. It landed on tails, and tails supposedly never fails. Co-main event, Rafael dos Anjos versus Brian Barbarina. Jed, I know RDA has said he just wants fun, exciting fights moving forward. He wants big names. And yes, Bam Bam Barbarina is on
so nice Barbarina.
But this one, I didn't expect it to be made. I really didn't. When I saw the poster, we confirmed, I was like, oh, okay, this is happening. It could be fun, but your thoughts, your prediction for this one, because RDA, biggest favorite on the card, minus 560. Bam Bam, biggest underdog on the card, plus 430.
Fight's weird as hell. I don't really understand it. And if you can tell, I'm not like that enthused about it. I don't know if that came across from a big, entirely real yawn. That was not faked. It's just like, what are we doing here? Like, I don't believe the RDA is one of the top 10 lightweights in the world, but he is number 7 in the UFC's lightweight rankings, and he's now fighting an unranked welterweight. Again, not even a guy who matters. And that's not meant to be disrespectful to Brian Barbarina, who is a fun as hell fighter. Love watching the guy scrap. I will always tune in when Bam Bam's going at it. But like, what does this fight do? Who is this fight for? Are we just going to roll out every octogenarian for Brian Barbarina to fight? Is that his lot in life? This man's 32. It doesn't seem like it because he only fights old people. And so you expect him to be old too. But like, why? What are we doing here? I think he's going to lose, by the way, but it's just like, what what does this do for RDA other than it's a winnable fight? And it means he doesn't have to fight Mateusz Gamrot or Arman Sarukian. Like, if you don't want to do that, then just be a welterweight. Like, you can just stay at welterweight and not be a lightweight. Like, that's fine. But like, this is just it's fine. I guess it's a fight. Sure. It might be, it's not going to be fun because RDA is going to do RDA things. So it's going to be efficient and not like the most interesting thing I've ever watched in my life. I just don't know what the hell we're doing here. Like, it means you want RDA is in a weird career position because you want guys at his stage to be doing one of two things. One, making a final late life title push or late MMA career title push, or doing the circuit, just fighting the other guys. Robbie Lawler versus RDA, and RDA versus freaking Stephen Thompson is like a more compelling and useful matchup in this regard. Brian Barbarina might get ranked at welterweight from this win. Like, I don't know, but like, do any of us believe that? Like, if he beats RDA, do any of us believe he is a top 15 welterweight or he's going on a run? No. So I just don't know. I don't know who this is for other than to spin the wheels and keep busy. Like, we could do other things with RDA. We could do other things with Brian Barbarina. And this isn't even fun Barbarina fight. It's like the other trash of it. Put him in with somebody who's going to chuck him. RDA is going to walk him down, pressure him, rip body kicks like into the liver, and take him down. Like, we're not even going to get a fun Bam Bam fight. This is like one of my least favorite fights on the card, for being honest.
AK, you're the Prince of Positivity. Are you a little more positive about this fight?
I mean, Jed is 100% correct that there's no real, if we're talking about like contender rankings implications, there's no real value here. But I've said about many fight nights like that is not my number one priority. Now, when you're talking about a legend like RDA, I get the frustration with kind of throwing him into pointless fights. I've said things like that about like Jose Aldo, Dominic Cruz. You do hope that however many fights these guys have left, these former champions, these recognizable names, that like there's at least some kind of weight, some kind of stakes. But I'm kind of okay for RDA as like this like stay busy fight, because I think very much like that's all he wants to do. He's just trying to keep cashing them checks. He's trying to keep cashing that show money. If the odds are right, he'll be finding himself with some
cash
some win money
against
too.
Neil Magny.
That's a much tougher fight. That's a much tougher fight than Brian Barbarina.
But that's at least a fight that, like, when we look back on the career of RDA, this is going to be one of those weird ones where it's like, look, for a decade plus, this mother effer, he fought who's who. And then he fought Brian Barbarina at one point. But everybody else he fought was freaking hitters.
But you know what?
And then there's Barbarina. Like,
what RDA is doing? You know what RDA is going to remember? The win bonus that he picked up on Saturday. Like, he's not, I get it. Legacy is cool. Legacy doesn't feed the bulldog, I mean, I'm fine
with it from his, again. Yeah. I'm always fine from his perspective. You take the easiest fight for the most money. Mm-hmm. That's prize fighting 101. Learn something, Aljo.
Yeah. Why did the UFC do this?
But why did the UFC do this? Like, what the hell? Who gives a shit? And why is this my co-main?
Because I like kind of the legend killer narrative that Brian Barbarina, maybe intentionally or not, is putting together. Like the Matt Brown, I would consider a legend. I know not a UFC champion. I could call him a legend. Robbie Lawler, UFC champion, and now he gets to fight a UFC lightweight champion, former champion. So there's like some narrative there for Barbarina, some narrative sense.
Before those two fights, he beat Darian Weeks
and lost to Jason Witt.
Yeah,
but
come on.
Hey, listen, this is what's great about MMA. Every run of fights is a chance to recreate your narrative. I mean, Jorge Masvidal is the biggest example of that, right? He went on a 2-3 fight run, and suddenly he's like one of the biggest stars in the history of MMA. Like, how the hell did that happen? I'm not saying that's what Barbarina's doing here. I wouldn't put this run of Matt Brown,
because Ben Askren is the pox of this sport. That's how it happens.
Listen, that's still,
it is all Ben Askren's fault.
MMA is the ultimate "what have you done for me lately" thing. So people won't remember the loss to Jason Witt. They're going to remember
Leon or Colby.
Hey, those are at least big names.
But they're also good fighters. Every good fighter he's ever fought.
But they're also going to remember, wow, he beat Matt Brown, Robbie Lawler, and RDA like in a row. Like if he beats RDA, I don't think he's going to. But if he did, that would look nice. Looks nice on the resume.
I am not willing to say that he beat Matt Brown or Robbie Lawler. He beat old Matt Brown and old Robbie Lawler.
Listen, they're in there.
I
the
want to
Wikipedia
draw a very clear
the Wikipedia entry
delineation.
doesn't say the age of the fighter when they fought him. It's just a name. It's there. I'm
Look,
just saying.
you are all the way correct, but everybody, Mike, you play golf. There's a difference between you hitting like a pure iron onto the green and you sculling one and it hitting a tree and hitting the green. Sure, you got there the same way, but like we all know what happened here. We all know.
W is a W. W is a W.
I think
Bam Bam
Barbarina
versus Jorge Masvidal. That's a way more fun
And
fight.
that could still happen someday. And just like RDA could still fight Neil Magny someday. Like this fight does not get in the way of either of these guys having more meaningful fights in the future.
RDA just simply doesn't want to fight like Demirous Ismagulov or Jalen Turner
Good.
or
And he
all the
shouldn't.
hitters at lightweight.
And he shouldn't. Just keep cashing those checks, RDA. You do you.
I'm going to drop him out of my rankings. I've made the decision right now.
As is your God-given right
I'm done
as an
with
American.
him.
As
I'm
your
done with him.
God-given right. Every American is allowed to rank however they want.
That's right.
That
I'm
is
done with
the
him.
beauty of the country that you live in.
I think Brian will be game. I think he'll be tough. I think he will actually get a lot more respect in this fight, but it's not going to be like the respect. It's going to be a different kind of respect. We're just like, damn, this guy's really, really tough.
Man, that guy can take an ass beating.
Yeah, it's going to kind of be one of those fights because RDA is.
It's going to be the Moicano treatment. Man, that guy can take an ass beating. All right.
Bam Bam's going to get some heart points, but I think just RDA.
I hope he
being
wins.
the crafty veteran. It'll be
I
a
hope he
clear-cut
wins.
decision. Might even be fighting tonight at the end because of the toughness displayed by Brian Barbarina, and the UFC likes to reward toughness in these types of situations. We also have Mateus Nicolau versus the now bald Matt Schnell, who shaved his head to make 126. Schnell
So
coming off the wild win.
wait a
Sumunirji.
second. You're telling me that you can shave your head and lose a whole half a pound. And this feels relevant. I feel like recently somebody came in a half pound over and didn't make any substantive changes and then still came in a half pound over. And like a lot of people, maybe some people on this program were very defensive about, well, we shouldn't strip the title, blah, blah, blah. Am I misremembering something entirely about that and how, oh, look, this guy found a way to cut half a pound. He just cut his hair off. Look at that.
Jed, where do these weigh-ins take place today?
I assume Orlando, but
Orlando,
I
Florida.
have no idea.
Listen, I don't know what was going on. Listen, that Charles Oliveira.
Is Orlando warmer than
I'm
Abu
just
Dhabi?
saying,
Get a better sweat in
Listen,
Orlando than
I
in
don't
Abu
like
Dhabi?
I don't know. I don't like to call out officials, but this guy,
Phoenix.
Yeah, Phoenix was for Charles Oliveira.
Oh,
Yeah.
it was Phoenix. Okay.
Listen,
That's
the
right.
guy-
Abu Dhabi's where he lost to Islam. Let's go.
Yeah. Well, listen, the guy who
Also,
was doing the weigh-ins in Orlando today was kind of doing it Vegas style a little bit. He wasn't not quite as quickly. He wasn't quite doing just like the glance and bang, but there was a bit of like, there was a bit of like a like it's
okay.
close enough, which is how weigh-ins should be done. I mean,
all I'm saying is one of these
we can
men
quibble over ounces.
One of these men did everything within his power to lose that half a pound, and the other didn't. And,
I would also say-
and one of those had a lot more to lose, and you
Hold
would
on.
think that the guy who had a lot more to lose would have been the guy who did
Hold
everything
on.
he could.
YouTube commenters, back me up on this. I would also say Matt Schnell has more hair than Charles Oliveira.
I'm not
I
confident. in
think.
that, but
I'm
maybe.
not like a bit more on the head. I mean, it's not. He doesn't have like super long hair. He's had longer hair in the past. I think he's not like super long hair. He's a little more hair. And as New York Rick pointed out to me, and I'm just so furious myself, I did not put this in the headline when I wrote this up. He shaved his body. Charles Oliveira, I think, is pretty hairless. That I'm confident about. Charles Oliveira is pretty hairless. Matt Schnell seems to have shaved his entire body. I don't know every part of his body, but he did shave. That might not have been an option for Charles Oliveira.
All I'm hearing is Matt Schnell wanted it more. That's all I'm hearing.
Listen, I want to applaud Matt Schnell. Matt Schnell did a fantastic job making away. I just don't think this reinforces whatever agenda it is that you are trying to push here today, sir.
I'm just saying, make the weight. Find a way.
You know what was great about the scale commission or compared to the Vegas one? The Vegas one slams it. He's already yelling the weight as he's walking away. This guy, if you had the closed captioning on the MMA Fighting weigh-in stream, you could actually see what the weight was before he said it, because he would slam the thing. He'd like run a lap around the room before he actually announced the weight. I knew Matt Schnell made 126 about 8 seconds before he actually said it on the stream. That's how it was for me. So very, very interesting stuff. Guy got his steps in, that's for sure. But I'm bringing this fight up, Jed. Flyweight under. This is a flyweight under, right?
Oh, it's for sure.
Smacking down
Well, since he made the weight, it is still a flyweight under. So yes. And if you live in America, you can do that. Canada, you guys are having some struggles with the whole betting on UFC fights.
Did you see this
days.
just came? What
Sure
just came in?
Just see the thing come across the desk.
As we're recording this show,
Canada, you guys are taking the threat of chicanery very seriously. It would appear
the lovely province of Alberta has followed in the Ontario Commission's footsteps and now is also banning UFC wagers. So there you go. That's exciting.
Wow.
Shout out to Aaron Bronstetter for tweeting that one out.
Shouts to Aaron. If you're in Canada and not in one of those two provinces, then flyweight unders, baby, always the flyweight unders. Matt Schnell is the king of flyweight unders. So I know that Mateus Nicolau is not really. He's actually pretty anathema to everything we stand for in the flyweight under business, but we believe enough in Matt Schnell to either get or get got before the 12.5-minute mark.
Yeah, geez Louise, this betting thing is unbelievable.
It's
speaking of electric bets,
my least favorite story in the world.
Yeah, speaking of electric bets, let's talk about one more main card fight. We have the heavyweights: Sergey Pavlovich versus Tai Tuivasa. AK, you can say what you want about Tai Tuivasa, but this man is not getting any easy outs these days. That's for sure, because Pavlovich has looked fantastic lately. Tuivasa gave Cyril Gane everything the man could handle and defeat, but I freaking love this fight, AK. I love it. What are your thoughts?
I love it. It has to be done. Tai Tuivasa, I'm glad he got his shot at his fight with Cyril Gane. Happy how it turned out. I mean, I would have liked to have seen a tie win, but I do think he silenced a lot of the doubters. Some people thought he couldn't even hang with a guy like Cyril Gane, so that was exciting. And now if he's, going to get back in that title picture, he does have to fight his way up. So if anything, it's a good thing they've given him another guy who, I mean, I don't know how you guys ranked him, but I kind of, I thought the stoppage of Derek Lewis was legit. I certainly gave him the Derek Lewis's spot. So he's top 5, top 6 in my ranking. So this is how it's got to be. Someone's going to sleep. This is why you make these heavyweight matchups. Other than like an aberration, like what happened with like Derek Lewis and Ngannou, this is one of those guarantees. They're gonna slug, or Tuivasa is gonna drag him to a slugfest at some point. And someone is getting put down hard. I'm a little surprised they didn't make this the co-main. I guess RDA, former UFC champion, but the name value. But as Jed kind of pointed out, like it's so low stakes. You wonder why they wouldn't put 2 heavyweight contenders in the co-main. And the UFC, if anything, loves putting heavyweights high in a card, often undeservedly. These are 2 heavyweights who do deserve having a co-main billing and are for some reason 4th from the top. But again, how can I complain that giving respect to flyweights, giving respect to RDA, just a weird little note. That's all.
Jed, how do you view this one technically? And from a betting perspective, because something tells me you see Tai Tuivasa at a near plus 200. You're giving this more than a look, right?
Love it all day. There are 2 fights on this card that I don't understand the betting lines for. And this is one of them. Like I want someone to explain it to me like I'm a Labrador, because I genuinely can't figure out why Sergey Pavlovich has a string of first-round knockouts. Great. Cool. Probably a top 10 heavyweight. Hits really hard. Tai Tuivasa, like, have we not been paying attention to what Ty's been doing? Like, no, there is not a soul alive save maybe Francis Ngannou. And I'm not even sure that is technically true, that hits harder than Derek Lewis. Tai Tuivasa just ate him. He ate those big lunch boxes. I mean, he got hurt because he's getting the force of a Mack truck to the jaw, but he survived and then threw back. My technical breakdown of this fight goes exactly like this. They are both going to hit each other very, very hard. I know with absolute certainty that Tai Tuivasa can eat one of the shots from Sergey Pavlovich and still keep going. I have no idea if Sergey Pavlovich can do the same. Old ass Alistair Overeem beat him not that long ago. Like, there's no world where Ty shouldn't be the favorite, particularly coming off the Cyril Gane loss. Like, that loss meant more to me than any of Ty's wins, frankly. It was an unbelievable performance from him. And I am astonished that he is not the betting favorite. So I for sure have a bet on Ty because I'm a simpleton and a fool. I also parlayed Ty with the aforementioned Brian Barbarina for the Bam Bam parlay, which Brian is going to be the one who ruins that parlay almost assuredly. But it would be cool if like something wacky happens and I can just shout Bam Bam the whole time. Tomorrow will be dope. So yeah, that's the technical breakdown. They're both going to swing. One of them is going to fall down, and I know that Ty has a good chin, and I am not as like it. Maybe Sergey does. We just don't know it yet. So I'm going to go with the proven chin commodity over the other one.
We did have one hiccup on the scale, gentlemen. Phil Rowe missed weight by 2.5 pounds. The large welterweight. So that is a catchweight bout with Nico Price. Nico Price returns from some serious knee issues, and we'll get 30% of Phil Rowe's purse. So low-key banger. Jed Bashu, before we take some questions from the peeps.
That's hard to call that a low-key banger just because it's the prelim main. Give me Marcelo Rojo, Francis Marshall. Because that fight's just going to be fun. Francis Marshall, he's 6-0 prospect, undefeated AME career. He's 23. Has looked pretty good in his early debut. I mean, not great. He's still young. He still has a lot to learn and develop, but you can see some tools there. And it maybe is a touch early for him to be in the UFC, but it's fine. Like, that's sort of just the business model at this point for them. And Marcelo Rojo, man, talked about on No Bets Barred. This guy, we talk about Matt Schnell just not enjoying judges. Man doesn't like him, hates him. You know who else? Marcelo Rojo. The last confirmed time Marcelo Rojo went to a decision was in 2012. Now, I can say confirmed because there were some fights on like the super regional circuit after that where it just is a win-loss, so I'm not really sure the method per Tapology, but it seems reasonably likely that for a decade, this guy is getting got. And God, I love that. I think he's going to get got. The fight's probably going to be really fun. You get a young prospect putting in a position to excel against a guy who is very excellable against.
AK, what do you got?
I mean, I can't listen. Darren Elkins on the card. I think that's always a good answer. Darren Elkins versus Jonathan Pierce. I like Jonathan Pierce a lot too. This is one of those Darren Elkins fights where I would imagine he is the underdog
by a substantial amount. He's
second
biggest underdog on the card behind Barbarina.
We've seen the damage be in that position, and make no mistake, Jonathan Pierce is going to damage him real bad. But I also can see Darren Elkins just reaching down and not necessarily coming back for a win, but making it a fight. Hells yeah, he's going to make it a fight. So, listen, Elkins is just a classic. I got to read off some Elkins stuff here. So this is 27th UFC appearance, his 25th at featherweight, extending his record for the most featherweight appearances in the UFC. He's close behind Max Holloway for the most wins at featherweight. Max Holloway has 18. I think he's just 2 behind, if I'm not mistaken. And everyone knows, third round Elkins is right up there with like third round Romero. He just becomes a different beast. And unless Jonathan Pierce can put him away, which would be, exciting and compelling in its own right, then you're going to get something good in the final 5 minutes. So I'm very comfortable picking Elkins and Pierce as a low-key banger.
Angela Hill, Emily Ducote is going to be good. Big fight for both ladies. Like that one. It's probably going the full 15. I'm excited to see what Yasmin Yaragai can do, or Yaragi, whatever it is. She looked real good in her first UFC fight. She's getting a tailor-made matchup, if you will. So she should probably style again. Maybe we have another Natalia Silva type situation where she goes in there and just one-ups what she did the first time out. So looking forward to seeing that. And I believe this will be the final fight for Scotty Holtzman as well against Clay Guida. So,
is this his retirement fight?
I believe it is.
Well, they're giving him a really winnable fight. It's the other fight that I don't understand the betting line on. Holtzman's like a moderate favorite. Clay Guida is washed and has been for years. Holtzman's like old, but he's not like it's minus 175. It's been coming down, but like earlier this week, he was like minus 150. I'm just like, why? Clay Guida hasn't looked good in years. Scott Holtzman was like having fun with Benny Dariush, who's at worst the 4th best lightweight in the world. So I don't understand this line either.
All right. So if you got questions, get them in there. We got like 8 more minutes because the ceremonial weigh-ins for UFC Orlando coming up at the top of the hour. We'll start with Joseph Boza. Can Kevin Holland throw the welterweight divisional rankings into a state of chaos with the win? Wonderboy ranked number 6 in the official UFC ranking. So AK, a state of chaos? Yeah. I mean, it's not the rankings that matter, but
what
state
are
of chaos? AK, are we going that far?
Thank you for the question, Joseph Boza. It doesn't throw it to any kind of chaos, I don't think. All that would happen is because Kevin Holland is, isn't he not in the UFC rankings? I guess not.
No, he's not in the UFC
He's
rankings.
not.
He will be if he wins his fight.
He's a Favre in our rankings, so he's.
I have him ranked 11.
You have him 11, so he's on a couple of bouts.
Highest on him.
Yeah, Jed Meshew, one of them. He's Stephen Thompson is 10th in the MMA Fighting global rankings.
I don't even have Thompson ranked.
So yeah, and he feels like he's kind of sliding on his way out. He's coming off 2 straight losses. So no, if anything, a win for Holland would just kind of really continue this arc for both men. Thompson would keep sliding out of the top 10, possibly out of the rankings altogether. Holland would get a number next to his name, which again, a couple of our panelists have them there already. I would imagine some of the people, whoever they are that vote for the UFC rankings, also probably have Holland somewhere 15, 14, 13. So no, nothing too crazy. It'll be great for Holland's career. Huge name to have in his resume. His first big, no disrespect to means, but like his first real kind of marquee name win at 170. So yeah, it's big. And in a main event, in a card that's close to the end of the year on a stacked card, which I think is going to have a decent amount of eyeballs on it. So it's an important win, but nothing that's going to cause anything too crazy.
Yeah,
I mean,
chaos.
Frankly,
chaos. No.
Yeah, frankly, tonight's fight is probably more likely to shake up the rankings than Kevin Holland. If Roberto Soldic, Soldic, yeah, Soldic just.
Oh, by the way, Roberto Soldic is fighting. I don't know if you know this. One Championship certainly hasn't told anybody about this, but Roberto Soldic just made his debut tonight for one.
Against 11-0 Murad Ramazanov. That was bad, but yeah, 11-0, good fighter. Roberto Soldic rules. I have him ranked. I think most of us have him ranked at this point now.
Yeah.
Not everybody, though. And I think if he wins this, he's going to hop into the pretty conclusively in the top 15.
I think the winner of this fight's probably going to fight like Michael Chiesa next. That's what I think is going to happen. I don't think there'll be any sort of chaos. No one's like jumping into a top 5 spot or anything like that. Yeah, that's probably what we're going to get. That'd be my guess. What would you do with the winner of Bam Bam versus Sergey Pavlovich, considering the state of the heavyweight division? So I feel like, Jed, and I'll start with you on this one. I feel like, at least for relevancy right now, I think Ty needs this one more because I think he could slide right into the title discussion if he wins this fight, which in Pavlovich, I think he's going to have a road ahead of him no matter what happens here. I just don't know. Ty's very marketable. Yeah, he's coming off a loss to Cyril Gane, but he becomes sort of on that short list. That's Ngannou, Jones, Gane, Blades, and if like something happens with one of those guys, Ty slides right in. That's kind of how I feel about it, but I feel like a loss doesn't crush Ty, but if he wants to get, but I think a win is going to do more for him than it will for Sergey, if that makes sense.
I'm not sure I agree. I don't think a loss crushes him because he's marketable. He's still relatively young.
Right.
I think a win for Sergey is pretty big because it gives him a marquee win, which he is. I mean, yeah, he beat Derek Lewis, but fight was a little weird, and it's just not. I think he goes out, and if he wins this fight the way it is going to have to be, will be more impressive. And frankly, at that point, if this dude, like I was talking some kind of greasiness about the man, but if his run after losing to old ass Overeem in his UFC debut is 5 first-round knockouts the most recent of which are Tai Tuivasa and Derek Lewis. And then Shamil Abdurakhmov's in there too, who's like a very substantive fighter. That I want him. That man's in my title conversation. Maybe he's not in the real one, but if he goes out here and just bolts up Tuivasa, who nearly bagged up Cyril Gane earlier this year, like that man's got to be fighting somebody. Like I'm assuming we're going to get Gane Blades fighting because it looks like we're on track for Ngannou Jones. Gane Blades will be the next one's up. Aspinall is out for however long. And then looking at the UFC's rankings, Pavlovich and Tuivasa are 4 and 5. Pavlovich will immediately be 4, and then he's got to get somebody next or try and wiggle his way into that in some way. So I think this is equally as important for both men, and probably more important for Pavlovich just because it shortcuts him there. Whereas I kind of think win or lose, Ty's going to fight Jairzinho Rozenstruik next because he doesn't get to be in the title picture because he lost to Gane this year. And Gane is clearly ahead of him, as is Curtis Blades. Like he's just sort of out of that. So kind of just feels like who would be fun? Jairzinho would be fun as hell. If Jairzinho beats Chris Daukaus, which I'm picking him to, though I don't feel wildly confident in that at 282. Win or lose, I just match him up with Ty because let's have some fun.
We'll take 2 more, AK, for you. And I'm going to add a little caveat to this question. You think Kevin Holland would retire if he loses? Do you think Wonder Boy will retire if he loses?
Neither. No, I don't think either guy retires. Wonder Boy doesn't retire. Wonder Boy, I think, again, he's serious about, still contending. And so if he just gets caught by something, I have a feeling like that it'll only motivate him more to kind of come back because it's the sort of thing he'll be able to talk his way through a loss. Like, oh man, I was, especially if he was winning. Again, those situations where I was winning, I won the first round. I felt like I was up, through the middle of the second round, and then something happened. Now I don't remember the rest of the fight or even what happened or the rest of Saturday. Like, it feels like something that could happen, and he'd be like, but we know what kind of adjustments we need to make. And I think he has a few fights left in him, win or lose. I do wonder how much longer the UFC will, want to hang on to him. If he can go on to like a Sam Alvey, 7-fight losing streak and still be with the promotion, it's possible. So I don't think he retires. Kevin Holland, if anything, Kevin Holland's more likely to retire and then just go back on it 4 months later, depending on what fights the UFC kind of throws his way. Because none of us, I don't think anybody believed sort of the retirement talk early this year. We all felt he was sort of jockeying for position or just being Kevin Holland. And I don't know if people realize this. Kevin Holland talks a lot. He talks a lot.
What?
He says a lot of things.
I don't believe it.
He says a lot of things. He's one of those guys. He's a volume talker. He's one of those guys who I think most people would call one of the who I consider
incredible thing.
I consider Israel Adesanya to be the same way as well. And I know these are guys that people consider to be charismatic. It's I don't know if they're charismatic or they just talk a lot and then occasionally they land a good one-liner or something. And this is strictly talking about their talking. I think Izzy does have a mystique about him, which is I think very, makes him very intriguing to watch. Holland kind of has that, maybe with the vigilante stuff. But my point is, I could absolutely see him winning, losing, losing if he loses, not if he wins, but if he loses, kind of going oh, well, that's it for me again. I was already having thoughts about it earlier this year, and now I'm definitely out. And then by sometime in 2023, going oh, you know what? Good fight came up. I'm in. I am back. I'm back again, never gone. So neither guy retires, but Kevin Holland more likely to fake retire.
Last question, and I think Omar found out some bad news as the show was going on. So we'll just leave it at the first half of this. Jed, who has the most pressure to win tomorrow?
It's probably Stephen Thompson still. RDA can't be in pressure because this fight doesn't mean anything. If he loses, it's bad, but it just seems like it would just be noise at this point because he's clearly not making a dedicated title run anywhere. He's fighting Brian Barbarina. So it doesn't feel like there's pressure here if he does lose, where Stephen Thompson still is saying that he, wants to be, he still has that fire to be competitive, to chase a championship. So I think that it's gotta be him. Yeah, I can't think of Nobody else makes sense. I don't feel like the Amanda Hebas one would have been true like at all either. So Omar, to your first point, even though that fight's off, frankly, really the only person who feels like they have a ton of pressure on them this card is Stephen Thompson to me. And maybe Eric Anders. I don't know. 3 in a row is pretty tough, but yeah, give me Wonder Man.
AK.
I'm sorry, I was addressing some message I was getting, work related message. What was the question again?
Who has the most pressure?
Most pressure to win.
Oh, like on the entire
whole
card?
On the whole card.
Oh,
I'm changing my answer, by the way.
Who has the most pressure to win? It's hard to answer because I think one of the things I like about this card. No, you know what? No, it's obvious. I think Ty. I think Ty. I think Ty. I think Ty actually has a ton to lose here. In my preview, that's my predictions that are going to come out on Saturday morning. I think I'm kind of talking about how like Ty is in, if anything, in a weird way, he's kind of took the gatekeeper torch from Derek Lewis when he beat him. I feel like he's where Derek Lewis was like 5 years ago, where he'll be good enough to beat a lot of the guys, knock out a lot of the guys outside the top 5, maybe trip into a title shot here and there, but never quite win it all. And for that to be maintained, he doesn't. I don't know if he needs to win, but boy, it would be rough for Pavlovich to kind of take his top 5 spot. I think Tuivasa like needs to hold on to that, even if it doesn't necessarily directly lead to a title shot in his next fight or even 2 fights from now. Because again, we talked about some of the big names up there that are kind of holding up those spots, and it would just be bad optically because Tuivasa is so highly regarded as just like this knockout artist. Jed's right; he's kind of being overlooked here. The odds are a little bit unfair. But if the odds were to prove correct, and you know, which is, and a lot of the doubters out there were kind of like, yeah, Tai Tuivasa sort of is who we thought he was, a guy who had a hot run. It's not really a heavyweight contender. This would reinforce a lot of those ideas, fair or otherwise. So I hate to say it because I don't know if I'm reverse jinxing here big time because I'm picking Sergey to win. I'm saying Tai has so much to lose. I just really think it's going to be a rough night for Tai and a pretty sour note to end 2022 on.
What's your new answer, Jed?
It's Michael Johnson. If he loses this, he will be 4-11 in his previous 15, which is bad. Like just that's bad. So maybe from a most to lose standpoint, I think Stephen Thompson is still the answer. But if Michael Johnson loses this one, it's like I said, 4 of his last 15. He only won 4 of his last 15. He would have lost 6 of his last 7. Like that's get cut territory. So, and get cut territory where I can't even feel good about him going to the PFL to chase $1 million. You know, like it's just bad for him. So give me Michael Johnson.
So an interesting pick right there. All right. It's coming. There it is.
Did y'all know that Rug is fighting tonight?
Yeah, on the main card too.
That's right. He got moved from Saturday.
I had no idea until I looked up the one. I work in this. This is my job.
Yeah.
And sure, people can be like, well, Jed, that means you suck at your job. Fair. That might be true. But if it is my job and I don't know that Roberto Soldic is fighting tonight or that you guys are up somewhere, do better.
And by the way,
I watch Thursday Night Football every freaking week. Do better.
And listen, don't blame MMA Fighting. All right, we've had multiple interviews with Soldic. Soldic was on the MMA Hour. Rug. Listen, that's if people go to our front page right now, scroll down a little bit. There's the news. Rug was moved to 1 on Prime Video 5. So I'm not blaming Jed. Like I said, I think we're doing our part. But the promotion itself is a little bit lackluster in kind of getting people to know. So hey, we tried to let people know. One championship, maybe. This is Rug.
Yeah, Henny and the hitter going for it. The Rotolo brothers just grappling folks. Like this is very viewable. This is very watchable content, and y'all aren't pitching it to me. Your literal target audience and demographic. Do better.
Well said. Well, we will let you know. We'll be back here tomorrow at 6:30 Eastern for the People's Pre-Fight Show. Casey will be back as well, so I can just focus on hosting and not producing as well. So we are done. Ceremonial weigh-ins going on right now. I think you can watch them at MMAfighting.com. great website. And we'll see you tomorrow, everybody.
It's a great
AK
website.
for Jed. I am Mike Heck. Good night, everybody.
Love you guys.